How are you? Hope you had a great weekend. We're back at it here, iPhone Week. Rush Limbaugh, the EIB Network, and the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. The telephone number, as always, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. Okay, so what is the daily media soap opera today? What is everybody talking about today? No, what everybody's talking about, and this is what this is designed to create, what everybody's, not the Pope yet. No, it's not the Ben Carson Muslim story, and it's not the Donald Trump what he should have said story. It's none of that. The story, the drive-by media story, the daily soap opera script today is, quote, once again, Republicans show their bigotry, unquote. That's what all of this is meant to be. They're not talking about what Ben Carson, if they talked about what Ben Carson said, they'd be debating it from both sides, and they would be explaining and asking, do we, maybe when we think about presidents, do we want a believer in Sharia law elected? They'd be discussing it seriously and intellectually. They're not. They're talking about what a neophyte, inexperienced bigot Ben Carson is, and since he's a Republican, that's what Republicans are. And the same thing with Trump. That's why everybody's got to stop falling for this stuff and discussing it on the premise or on the terms the left presents. And that's all anybody's doing. And so the as far as the daily consumers of news is concerned, what's on display again is Republicans defending themselves against charges of bigotry. Pure and simple. And in the midst of that, what's not being discussed? Obama. What's not being discussed, and it's a Republican presidential campaign, is the damage American liberalism and the Democrat Party continues to inflict on this country. We're back now to Republicans are bigots. Next week, Republicans are going to be back to the war on women by the time the Pope gets here or whatever. And this is how it goes, day to day to day, week to week to week. And the Republicans have got to stop falling for this. It's as though they accept the premise because they think that the people are going to believe these charges, therefore they need to take the time to defend themselves. And once you start doing that, once you accept the premise of this stuff, it's stuff. In the meantime, here's a headline that ladies and gentlemen, your host, am the subject of the first 6 audio sound bites in the sound roster today, in the soundbite roster. Your host. You know what I did this weekend? I played golf, and I got my daily dose of football on Sunday, and I did show prep. I didn't bother anybody. I didn't go on television. I didn't go on the radio. I didn't do anything. I lived my usual private life. I am the subject of the first 6 sound bites. And 2 of them are the media asking Republicans, do you agree with Rush Limbaugh that the Pope is a Marxist? Do you agree that Ben Carson's a neophyte and doesn't know what he's talking about? Do you agree we shouldn't have a Muslim in? And do you hear what Trump said? I don't know why we're talking about it. We may already have. Do you agree with Rush Limbaugh that the Pope is a Marxist? Oh, I don't know. The Pope's vicar of Christ. A tough thing to say. I don't know. It's just predictable. It's so avoidable. Actually, all it takes is an attitude of offense. Just refuse to accept the premise of the. You know who did it really well today? I'm going to give a shout out here to Tammy Bruce. Tammy Bruce was on Fox News, one of these guest on the left, guest on the right segments. You got your Fox host. In this case, it was John Scott. And Alan Colmes here on the left and Tammy Bruce. And she succeeded in getting Combs to say, you know what? I'll come back next week. I'm not even going to talk. You keep interrupting me. I'm not going to. I didn't interrupt you. You interrupted me first. I'm not going to. He just, because all he was doing was carrying forth this premise that Republicans are bigots and they've got to defend themselves and so forth. And she was just excellent in telling everybody that got to just reject, keep rejecting, don't ever accept these premises, no matter where they happen, including at Fox News. Bloomberg story. This is the news of the day to me. Bloomberg politics. In Francis, Obama finds an ally to amplify his agenda to the public. That's the news to me, because what's the Obama agenda? The Obama agenda is forever transforming this country in ways that a majority of Americans do not support. Obama's agenda is transforming this country in ways that require great traditions and institutions to be impugned, destroyed, disrespected, questioned. And here we have the Vicar of Christ showing up, and the story about that is Obama's found an ally, and they want to talk about whether I'm right, that the guy's a Marxist or not. Questions answered. Asked and answered in the headline here, Bloomberg Politics. George Will. He may be angering a lot of you people on Trump, but he wrote a piece in the National Review that ran yesterday on the Pope that is just superb. It is a piece that I shall quote from liberally, meaning quite a bit from today. Just excoriates, not excoriates, it just exposes the Pope as how wrong the guy is. Politically, not theologically, just how wrong he is and why. Where he comes from, Argentina, to what he was raised on Perón and Evita and all that. But the point is that everything the Pope seeks would end up doing great damage to the very things he supports. For example, you remember, it wasn't long ago, maybe a year or two ago, maybe 3 now, Herbert Meyer, a former official in the Reagan administration, made news in the middle of Obama's destructive policies such as Obamacare by writing a piece saying the greatest story in the world today, the greatest untold story, is the reduction of poverty. Remember that? I got Herbert Meyer on this program. We talked to him for the Limbaugh letter in the interview section for a particular issue. And he says it's a great untold story about how the United States, spreading capitalism, has succeeded in reducing poverty around this world like we have never seen before. Well, in that, George Will makes the point that everything the Pope wants to happen has happened because of capitalism. And if we revert to the way the Pope wants governments to operate, all these gains in poverty will be lost, and people who have now come out of it will be back in it. It's a great piece for illustrating that the Pope and Obama and everybody who thinks politically like they do, and we're not supposed to talk this way about popes, you see, this is another thing. The Pope is an insulated political figure because he's the Vicar of Christ. And so even Catholics, devout Catholics, are duty-bound to follow Il Papa theologically. But when the Pope strays and starts talking about politics, we're not supposed to criticize the Pope no matter what he does because he's the Pope. So if you do, then curses on you, so to speak. So I know he did. This is a point. When anybody enters the political arena, I consider it fair game. I don't care if it's Michael J. Fox. I don't care if it's Georgetown students who want to be paid $3,000 a month for contraceptions or contraceptives. I don't care what. If you put yourself in the political arena, then you are inviting a response. Nobody gets insulation, but the left seeks insulation for all of these powerful figures that enter politics on the basis that it's unkind, it's unseemly, it's whatever else it is to criticize them. So we've got that. We got to deal with what Ben Carson, but I'm not going to let it dominate things here, and I'm certainly not going to let it become the premise here that it has become everywhere else in the media. Ditto with Trump. You know, he sent out a couple of responses over the weekend, and he got it mostly right. So why am I obligated to defend President Obama? He wouldn't defend me. He never has. Why am I obligated to defend? Why am I obligated to tell everybody what his religion is when I don't even know? Why am I obligated to do this? And see, he's not the point of all of this. is not the specific charge or the specific detail in every story. It's the overarching theme, if you will, and that is Republicans and prejudice, or Republicans and bias, or Republicans and bigotry. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton is now actually trying to refer to herself as an outsider. You know, there's also big news out there. There are big businesses, major corporations and individual donors who are abandoning the Clinton Global Initiative, which occurs in New York at the same time the UN does. It's either the same week or either the week before or week after, but regardless, the Clinton Global Initiative has had all kinds of donors pull out, not sponsor, world leaders pull out, not show up. It's unprecedented. It's never happened before. And it's a huge list, and I've got it here. It's all coming up on the program. I'm just setting the table here for you detail-wise. Details will follow. But the point is that some of them are getting worried here that Hillary's not going to get elected. I mean, they're giving money to these people not because they like them, folks. They're not giving money to the Clintons because they're nice to go and have a beer with or any of that, or because they're such fun lovers. They're giving money to the Clintons in hope that they will be back in the White House and be able to repay with policy and other concessions or considerations. And they're pulling, and then there's also some controversy that's attaching itself to the Clintons and this email stuff that some of these people don't want to be associated with. It's unprecedented. This has never happened. That's also a story you won't find anywhere else. I mean, people pulling out of the Clinton Global Initiative, a major American business, major international, multinational corporations that people of the left supposedly hate them, major world leaders who had committed and now saying they're not showing up. It's a huge story, but it's like tree falling in the forest. If nobody's there, does it make a sound? If the drive-bys are not going to cover it, then nobody's going to know that it's happening. And the Clinton Global Initiative gets by another year with this casual reporting as though it's just a fait accompli every year, when actually this is looking to be a very disastrous year for them, both in terms of money and prestige. And then there's forget so many polls today. There's a new poll that says Hillary has just jumped way ahead of Bernie Sanders. You know which poll that is off the top of your head? Time, man. Don't bother looking it up. I've got it here somewhere. I just don't know. There's so many different polls. And Trump, this is classic. Trump's, I may get the networks reversed here, but Trump's on NBC, and he chides them for not using their own poll talking to him, where he looks good, and instead using an ABC poll where he looks bad. Why don't you use your own poll when I'm here with you? And I might have the networks reversed, and I'm not sure which. And then Biden, we got a late entry from Biden saying, I don't know. I'm not so sure about this. After a weekend filled with Jill Biden saying, hey, let's do this, honey. Let's go for it. Let's do it. So there's nobody but Hillary, folks. You get excited about Bernie all you want. He's not going to be there at the end of this process. They're not going to permit it. So Hillary's the nominee. I don't say that out of happiness or glee. I'm just telling you, it isn't going to be anybody. You really think? I mean, barring, I don't know, unless this 14-year-old kid from Dallas could be cleared to run for president. That's another scam. Wait till you hear the details of this. A total scam. This family, this kid ran on the school system in Dallas. He didn't invent anything. He didn't. It's a mess. But once again, nobody knows. As far as everybody's concerned, this kid's a brilliant scientist in waiting, tech wizard and so forth, going to the White House, and his family may be nothing but a bunch of fraud hoaxers. So you sit tight, ladies and gentlemen. A brief, obscene profit time out here to get us going, and we'll come back with all the rest of today's program right after this. And here we go again. I just checked the drive-by networks here during the break. Trump and Carson both refused to back down, as though they should back down. Why? They said what they intended to say. They said what they meant to say. Why should they back down? But see, that's the objective. They get them to back down, get them to apologize, say something that will allow the drive-bys then to nail home the point, the real point here, which is that they're trying to establish is that once again on display, here comes Republican prejudice, anti-minority bigotry, what have you. An immediate violation of political correctness. There has not been one substantive discussion of what Ben Carson said. All there has been is this mock outrage, and do not doubt me for a moment. It is mock outrage. It's not real anger, not from the drive-bys. Oh, man, I love this. They're all excited. Look what Ben Carson just gave. So they get to go on TV and act mad. Outraged, personally disgusted, when in fact they're filled with glee, happiness, and potential, because once again they get to carry forward one of their memes. Here's Trump. This is on Meet the Press Sunday morning. Chuck Todd. In response to this controversy about the questioner at your town hall meeting, you tweeted out that you're not morally obligated to correct anybody who criticizes Obama. And I think you're right about it. But isn't it appropriate, at least at times, Mr. Trump, to raise the level of political discourse and to correct some of the mythologies that are out there so that we're ultimately all dealing with the same set of facts?
The president can really defend himself very well. He's a very capable person for that, purpose. When somebody says something about me, is he going to defend me? And I can tell you emphatically that the answer is no. It wasn't my obligation to defend. In fact, as you know, because I also tweeted that this is the first time I've ever gotten in hot water for not saying anything. I didn't do anything.
But more than that, here again, let's go back to Chuck Todd's question. It's now up to Trump, i.e. a Republican, to elevate our politics. Yes, he's morally obligated to raise the level of political discourse. And you see, you never hear that question or anything like it asked of a Democrat. Never, ever. And there are countless examples of outrageous claims coming from them and their supporters filled with lies. Twitter is filled with it. You talk about raising the level of discourse. When's the last time anybody on Twitter or in the Democrat Party denounced anything that's happening in that sewer? See, all of this is a one-way street. It's up to Trump to elevate the political discourse. Why? Well, because the political discourse is in such bad shape because of these outspoken conservative Republicans. Yeah. So all of these just established narratives that Republicans somehow end up obligated to address and to fix or to apologize for. Here's This Week on Stephanopoulos. He's talking to Trump. He said, for the record, was President Obama born in the United States? Is this a legitimate question at this point? Trump has already been there and done that on this question. I don't know how many times. This is like Stephanopoulos trying to reignite this issue just as he ignited the war on women issue with Mitt Romney, asking him some irrelevant question about contraception. Why are we answering questions from this guy anyway? He's a Democrat operative disguised as a journalist. He ran the Clinton war room, for crying out loud, and there's another Clinton in the presidential race this year. So for the record, was President Obama born in the U.S., Mr. Trump?
I don't get into it, George. I talk about jobs. They ask that question, and I just want to talk about the things because, frankly, it's of no longer interest to me. We're beyond that. I want to talk about jobs. I don't get into that, George.
Well, the way to get beyond it is to answer yes or no. Do you believe...
Well, that's possible, but I don't get into it.
No, George, the way to get beyond it is not answer yes or no. The way to fall into your stupid, silly trap is to answer it yes or no. This is not even journalism. This is more gotcha. I hate this stuff, folks. I get so fed up. It's so predictable. There's no excuse for any Republican ever falling for this stuff again. You know, the mainstream media, the drive-bys, why are they never obligated to elevate our politics? I mean, you want to talk about the primary offenders? You want to talk about the people that actually make these assaults on our politics possible and level many of them, you've got to look no further than the drive-by media, which is really inseparable from the Democrat Party anyway. How many of you remember Joe Biden said the Republicans wanted to put blacks back in chains? It wasn't that long ago. Do anybody remember the media being outraged at the statement? It's like, this is beneath our politics. Asking the vice president, why don't you want to elevate our politics, Mr. Vice President? Why will you make one a baseless allegation like that? Anybody remember that? I don't. Biden also called the Tea Party a bunch of terrorists. In fact, you can take your pick. Find a Democrat, go research what they've said about the Tea Party, and then ask yourself, why doesn't anybody demand of the Democrats that they elevate our politics? Take a look at Obama. I mean, this list is never ending. Bitter clingers, Jeremiah Wright, you name it. And yet, here's Stephanopoulos, Chuck Todd, Donald Trump demanding that he do something to elevate our politics. Maybe he doesn't have to defend Obama, but could he do something about that idiot questioner to elevate our politics? I maintain that question, I don't know whether the guy was a plant or not. I have no idea. And there's a theory running around that the guy was a plant and that exactly what has happened was the objective. I don't know. Don't know enough. I think it's too easy to say that. But the point is, why does somebody like that exist? Why does somebody have questions like that? You can find on the World Wide Web, you can find stories of secret terrorist training camps in this country. And gullible people run across things and read it all the time. I don't know about you, but the stuff I get relayed to me by people who think they've found something earth-shattering on the internet, I've had to set up spam filters to make sure I don't get that garbage. And I get frustrated at people who ought to know better for sending it. But it's out there. You can't deny it's out there. And when you have circumstances in a country with things happening that make no sense and are inexplicable, people are demanding answers, and they'll fill the vacuum with something. Let me give you a good analogy here. I don't know how many of you are, just stick with me on this for a second. I don't know how many of you are aware, but Apple's new operating system for the iPhone and the iPad is called iOS 9. And there's something in it that has taken off and has created overnight best-selling apps. And you know what they are? They are content blockers for Apple's web browser on the iPhone and the iPad, which is called Safari. There are any number of these blockers, and many of them are free. Some of them cost 99 cents up to $3. You buy them just as you would buy an app on the App Store. And after that, you go to Safari settings and you turn one or more of these blockers on. And then you go start surfing the web. And you know what happens? Websites load instantly. It's uncanny. I've tested it. I tested it during the beta period. I don't want to name any websites, but one very popular news site, without these blockers for everything, all the trackers to load, and the ads and the videos, 55 seconds. With these blockers in, that same web page loads in 5 seconds. It's uncanny. This has caused there to be a major debate. We now have customers who are purposely, eagerly blocking ads. Now, this has been done on desktop computers for a long time. There have been ad blockers out there, but it's never been the case on mobile. Apple decided to do this, so goes the theory, because web pages were taking so long to load and there were so many ads that it was eating up battery life. I went out, I got a program that tells me everything that gets loaded on any web page that you load. And I don't want to mention any pages, it's not the point, but there are pages everybody uses. Try 35 different trackers, including ads, analytics, trackers that tell the host website where you are, what your IP address is, what other things you're clicking on that web page. That's how they're able to target advertising for you. But the question has been raised, okay, well, this is horrible because from the advertiser standpoint, their ads are being blocked. And from the website standpoint, this is horrible because their ads are not being seen, and that's their only source of revenue. They don't charge for the actual site like the New York Times or the Washington Post does. They don't have a paywall. They're free. And advertising is what supports them and how they stay in business and pay their bills. But if these content blockers are going to grow in popularity, nobody's going to see their ads. So the debate has begun. Whose fault is this? Is this Apple's fault? Has Apple got some reason here they want to harm advertisers on the web? Because Apple's own programs are not blocked. It's just Safari. It's just their website. But Apple has a new app that is an option for news websites to join where ads are not blocked. They will be seen, but Apple gets a cut. Look, I don't want to get too much in the weeds here because the question is, who's really to blame? And there are two answers to this. One is greedy advertisers and websites who just kept loading these websites with ad after ad after ad and video after video after video to the point that people got so fed up they didn't want to deal with it anymore. Stopped visiting these websites. The ads, some of them were X-rated, and some of them were just inexplicably bad. And the pages just kept selling these ads because that's their revenue source. And finally it got to the point where for their customers, Apple had to come in and give relief. Then the other side says, no, it's not the website's fault and it's not the advertiser's fault. It's Apple's fault, and they're anti-capitalist and they're anti-trade, free trade, and all of this. The point is, depending on where you come down on the debate, most people are conceding that too much junk has ended up on too many web pages, and consumers, when given the choice of either dealing with the mess that exists or blocking the content, are choosing to block it. Well, the same thing here in politics. Same thing with this media stuff. You know, who's really to blame? So this guy stands up at the Trump thing and starts talking about all this odd stuff and asking Trump about it. He's not the only one. There are websites devoted to this out there. There is such fundamental change going on in this country. Fundamental change that has never been voted on. Fundamental change Obama never told the truth about. If Obama had told the American people that by the time he left office, the Iranians were going to be paid $150 billion to spread terrorism and they were going to have a nuclear weapon, do you think he'd have been elected? Do you think if Obama had promised people there was going to be a national health care system and everything that's happened with it, that has happened, was going to happen, do you think he'd have been elected? And go down the list of everything that has happened in the Obama administration. Immigration. Do you think if Obama had campaigned in 2008 on amnesty, and again in 2012 he had been reelected? No. So there are a lot of people feel defrauded here. A lot of people already feel powerless because Washington is its own place, and it has obviously no interest, concern, or care for what the people of this country think. It only cares about the people that donate it money and contribute money. Those are the people running Washington, D.C. There's a giant disconnect that we have been talking about. So people start evolving oddball kook theories to try to explain this because it doesn't make common sense to them. And somehow it's Trump's fault now. There's been so much misrepresentation reported as fact in the media. There's been so much disinformation, misdirection, out-and-out lies told as fact in the media. You've got a Republican Party doesn't stand up against any of it. The Democrat Party gets away with running around saying and doing whatever they want to do with impunity. You have to somehow understand how people are frustrated here. And yet here comes Stephanopoulos and here come F. Chuck Todd demanding that Donald Trump and Ben Carson explain this. And it's up to them to elevate the tone of our politics and so forth. When I would submit to you the tone of our politics, it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It has nothing to do with Ben Carson. It has nothing to do with anybody on the Republican side. It has to do with what's been happening to this country over the last number of years, inexplicably. And most of it, I dare say, even though Obama won 2 elections, hasn't been voted on. So which came first, folks? people that believe in these conspiracy kook theories, or people planted to ask those questions, or a media working with the Democrat Party doing everything they can to fundamentally transform the greatness of this country to mediocrity. And a whole bunch of people who oppose it want no part of it and are grasping at straws to try to stop it because they don't have political representation in Washington. They do not have a political party representing them, pushing back, trying to stop any of this. You ponder that. I must take a brief obscene profit break, and we'll be back after this. How are you? Welcome back. Rush Limbaugh, the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. You know, this business of Obama and Ben Carson, I've got the soundbite coming. This whole business, we don't think we should have a Muslim, he doesn't think we should have a Muslim president. It would be beyond the pale. And a lot of people are saying, what difference does it make now? And the reason they're saying, what difference does it make now, is how would Obama be acting any differently? I'm just telling you what people are saying. Okay, let's say we have a president who's Muslim, and the Iranians end up with a nuclear weapon. It would make sense, right? That's happened with a Christian president. Isn't that amazing? We got a president who's angered our number one Middle Eastern ally, Israel, made up of Jewish people. A Muslim president would do that, right? It's already happened. I'm just telling you what people are saying. My email's overflowing with this kind of stuff. How about a president going to the United Nations saying the future must not belong to those who slander the prophet? That's already happened. Well, Barack Obama did that. How about we have a president who says the most beautiful sound ever heard is the call to morning prayer? Already happened. Obama said that. So what difference does it make? Just telling you what people are saying. You watch, this is going to end up with me saying, I'm just telling you what people are saying out there, folks. To the phones. Tyler, Dubuque, Iowa, you're up first. Great to have you on the Rush Limbaugh program. Hi.
Hey, Rush, it's great to talk to you. I've called in a couple times. Always a pleasure to talk to one of the greatest talk show hosts in radio history, at least in my opinion.
Thank you, sir, very much. You're very flattering, and I appreciate that.
So I told Snerdley that I was going to talk to you about the iPads and their ad blockers, but it seems like that was a little bit of a snippet that you were using to talk about sort of Ben Carson and Donald Trump's treatment in the media.
No. I took your call because you want to talk about the ad blockers.
Okay, well, yeah, I wanted to say about that I think in the end the consumer is what's going to win out here because it's already happened on desktops, and I think that eventually that the customer or the companies are either going to have to adapt or they're going to go out of business, just like Blockbuster did. I mean, Blockbuster tried to compete with Netflix, and there's not too many Blockbusters around left.
Yeah,
I think what's going to happen is that they're either going to have to find a way to, make the ads in such a way that consumers will.
Well, you see, that's the thing. Some of my little tech blogger buddies, they don't know they're my buddies. I just call them that. They probably would really be offended if they thought that I was really their buddy. I just call them that. But they work in this business, and some of them will even admit to you that they are culpable in this, that they've allowed their websites to just get overpopulated with garbage. But, folks, look, on an iPhone, particularly a smartphone, when you have a website that takes 45 seconds to load everything, and I mean things you don't even see being loaded, the trackers you don't see. You see the video player being loaded. You see the ads being loaded. But there's much, all the trackers and the analytics from Google that are being loaded in these websites. You never see it. But it's why your bar never finishes for 45. You can read what's on the website maybe within 20 seconds. But your battery is churning for that full minute while all this stuff is loaded. And sometimes the content doesn't load fully until all these things do. And then you're shown how you can have every website you visit load in 10 seconds. What are you going to do? So the genie's out of the bottle. One of the problems is that tech bloggers are not fully into capitalism, even though they practice it. They're obligated to condemn it and speak out against it. And the way that manifests itself is they are now ripping Apple. Because Apple created the possibility of the content blockers in iOS 9. And at the same time, Apple has set up its own news app, and they're making deals with news providers. They can put everything on their website, their news stories, in Apple's news app, and sell all the ads they want. Apple gets a take, and there are no blockers. Yeah, well, you can whitelist the sites you like, but people are only going to whitelist. That's not going to solve the problem. Whitelisting is not going to solve the problem. The genie's out of the bottle. So what's going to happen? This guy's exactly right. The consumer is going to determine what happens here. And the advertisers, Madison Avenue, is not just going to sit there and say, oops, we have been snookered. What's going to happen is there are going to be all kinds of we've already led the way here in radio years ago on this. We are truly the trailblazers. What's going to happen next in online is advertising is not going to look like advertising, and it's not going to have pictures. It's going to present to you as a news story. Creative writers are going to write stories about a product that you're going to think is a review or maybe somebody really recommending it when in fact it's going to be an ad. And it can't be blocked because traditional blockers haven't yet been written to block that kind. Or they'll come up with some way of disguising what looks like content as an ad in order to get past the blockers. I mean, too many people depending on this revenue. Too many websites depending on it, and not all of them are like us. We can charge. We have a rabid fan base that pays for our content here because I'm special. But most websites cannot get people to pay for their content. That's why they have to sell advertising. We do both. That's because we're good. What can I say? No, that's a good point. It's not just on Wi-Fi. It's also on cellular, that your websites can load in 5 seconds or less, even on cellular. So you save data, charges, save battery, a lot of battery and data. But there are a couple of other things about this that I probably should pass along to you. So we'll do that and keep going here when we get back.